This is not a test.
What up, welcome back to the channel. I'm J and we are locked in. This is it. Welcome to Derry episode 3. And we have a new set of kids trying to figure out where the hell Pennywise is. And what we seen dug up last week was a car that was riddled with bullets and it had skeletons inside, but we don't know whose skeletons or why that vehicle was shot up. And hopefully we get those answers this week in episode 3. But before we jump into this, we break down it. Welcome to Derry. If you like this kind of content, recaps where we go over the latest shows, especially it on HBO, then hit your subscribe button, turn your notification bell, hit that like button, do all the YouTube stuff. Let's get this channel to 60,000 subscribers by the end of the year. But let's go ahead and jump into it and see what Ronnie has to say, because her father is in jail because of Lilly not telling the truth, and Lilly went off to the Lulu binge. So everybody's all over the place, and we're going to figure it out on episode 3 of It. Welcome to Derry. Starting the episode off, we take it back to 1908. Now, they're at this little amusement park, and you know, back then they were a little bit different. A nickel could take you a long way. Well, this young kid by the name of Francis, he looks like a sissy, but he's walking around, and this guy's like, come on in. Basically, it's a haunted house. You know, they have the little mirrors in there, and there's some different freak shows in there. When he gets in there, he's a kid. He's by himself. This is 1908. There's no regulations. There's no parental guidance needed. He goes in here, and he's starting to see some very, very weird stuff. As he makes his way around back, he runs into this ugly individual, and he's like, come here, come here. He lights a match, looks at him, missing teeth. It scares Francis. It sends him running off. Francis runs up out of there. His dad like, damn, Francis, where you been, son? He said, Dad, I went in there. He's like, oh, don't be a sissy, son. Pops actually won you something. Now, his dad won him a slingshot. I had a fake slingshot when I was young. It wasn't good enough to do anything. But still, as a kid, getting a slingshot in 1908, this is probably like the best thing you could get. He probably won it for 1 or 2 pennies. But Francis is scared. His dad was like, come on, we got to go on home. While they're riding home, Francis' dad breaks down on the side of the road. It overheats. So they go past this little stand, and we see 3 Native American kids out there selling jars of water. The dad tells Francis, go over there and grab some water. The water costs 5 cents. He only has 3. So when he walks off, they tell him, no, it's 5 cents. He said that's all he has. Well, the little girl by the name of Rose, she points at the slingshot and says, we'll take the slingshot for a jar of water. So Francis, he had a bargain. Francis and the little girl Rose, they build a relationship off of that slingshot exchange for the water. Now, Francis' father is in the army, so they're stationed up here in Derry. You see him and Rose, they're playing around in this open field, and then Francis gets careless and he runs off into the woods. But he runs so far off into the woods, he turns around and realizes he's lost. He doesn't know where he's at. With Francis being so far in the woods, he's lost. He doesn't know where he's at. He starts to see that same ugly, scary man that was in the haunted house at the fair. And he's popping up behind trees. And out of nowhere, he pops up right behind Francis and scares the hell out of him. He tells him, hello. This thing gets down on all fours and starts chasing Francis. He's scared as hell. They running. Rose comes in like, Francis, this way, this way. Francis starts following her, and this thing is after it. I'm talking about he's getting it. Rose actually hit it in the head with that slingshot. Now, the 2 kids, they're running their fastest, and it is after them, and there's no escaping it. But then they end up back in the open field, and that's when Rose realizes it doesn't chase you outside of the woods. So whatever this is contained specifically to the woods. Let me tell you something. That would be the last time I go past the tree line. Lilly is still over in Juniper Hill, and her mom is coming to pick her up. Now, they say she's going crazy, and that's because no one believes anything that she says. And we know that Hank is in jail because of her, but this is a kid. And you're not going to expect a kid to actually think about someone else when it's their lives that's in jeopardy. But she gets a relationship that's close with one of the workers. And this worker is saying, I believe what you're saying. I know if you say that, people are going to believe that you're crazy. But you can always trust in me. Now, can we trust her or not? Only time would tell. But Lilly, she's nervous. She wants to go home, but she doesn't want to come back. So she doesn't tell anybody what she actually seen, which is a monster and not Hank. Hank is in jail. The sheriff comes over and he's talking to him like, hey, you want a cigarette? He's like, I don't really smoke no Pall Malls. But he's like, well, it is what it is. I'll smoke it anyway. Now, Hank smokes a different pack of cigarettes. So when the sheriff is talking to him, he's asking him, where were you? Don't lie to me. Hank is saying, I'm telling you, I was at the house with my mom. I was asleep. They said, nah, we got an eyewitness that said you were in the streets at 11:30, a sworn affidavit. They signed it off and everything. He's like, nah, that ain't me. Well, the sheriff is actually Francis, the little boy. And he says, nah, we actually found a pack of cigarettes that you smoke on the scene, or at least out in the streets. So it does look like Hank is guilty, but we know Hank wasn't there. Ronnie goes back to school. Now, when she gets there, everyone's looking at her. She got a weird old daddy. They call him Hatchet Hank. He's going to fry. They wrote that on her locker. Now, everyone's looking at her because at this point, there's only a few black people up here. And her dad is accused of getting rid of 3 little white children. So you can imagine how that is. Now, across the hall, we see Will and we see Little Rich. And Little Rich is like, man, her dad's crazy. He's a psycho. Will said, I don't think her dad would do anything like that. They talked when he was in study hall, and he realized that she's a nice young kid that was raised the right way, so he doesn't believe her father would be capable of doing something like that. Ronnie goes to the bathroom to clean her hands off. Lilly comes in with a concoction saying, this should help you get it off. Ronnie's saying, why are you talking to me? I should whoop your ass. Lilly said, no, wait. They sent me to Juniper Hill and I want to help your dad. But if I say what I saw, they're going to say that I'm crazy. So I think I got an idea on how we can show people that we aren't lying. So Ronnie's like, how can we do that, Lilly? And Lilly shows her a camera. The only thing is now they have to figure out how to get whatever it is on camera to be able to prove that they aren't lying, which is a deadly task from what we've seen. On the military base, we have the general going over all the facts of what they dug up. Now, they dug up all around the town, and all they found was this car. But the car doesn't have anything to do with what they found. This is an old mobster car that's been shot up from 1938, and it just has bodies in there. So what the general is saying, well, we need to get Dick. Now, Dick is the airman that's been driving them around, the one with the special privileges that showed up drunk with his people last week. What he's saying is we need to get Major Leroy to fly him around, because if this guy is psychic like he's been, we need him above it so he can pinpoint exactly where we need to locate whatever has been buried or whatever we're looking for. Dick and the other airmen, they blowing off some steam, playing dominoes, playing cards, got a little Coca-Cola, a little cigar weed. Well, it's probably just a cigarette, but they in here chilling. It's raining outside and the whole drops down through the middle of the tent full of rain. And everybody like, damn, Dick, we thought you had special privileges. He's like, I do. But right when he said that, the general comes in and tells him, let's go. Let's get on out of here because it's time for business. We know that the general wants to find out whatever we're looking for, whether it's an energy, an entity. We don't know what it is, but we know that Dick can locate it. Major Leroy has been tasked with flying Dick around so he can get a feel of the land and potentially find whatever they're looking for. Now, there's a cigar box that he got from the general, but there's no cigars in there. It's actually the same slingshot that Francis and Rose had. So Dick is a psychic, and touching this, since it's been around, this entity, this monster, whatever it is, once he touches this, he can start to get a sense of what location to go to. And he tells them to turn the helicopter to the east because he's getting closer to it. Again, when young Rose and young Francis were running, when they got to the field, they realized that this monster wouldn't follow them outside of the woods. Now, Rose gets older, and if you remember last week, there were a group of individuals watching the dig site. Well, they were Native Americans, and they're here at their community meeting trying to figure out what the army is digging up. Now, Rose, she's saying, listen, we don't want them to stop digging because we want to find out also. So the only way we'll be able to find out is to allow them to keep working. So that's what Rose is telling her family member. And she also tells everyone else, look, just chill. Let's write up a formal complaint so we can see all the information that they had. So Rose is the one on the ground that's actually putting in some work and has been living here since 1908, dealing with this same nonsense. While they're on the helicopter, Dick touches the slingshot, he closes his eyes, and he starts tripping out. They calling in, hey, we need to be able to return. They like, nah, stay up in the air. Well, as Dick closes his eyes, he sees a sign that says Pennywise. He's standing in water. He's wondering what's going around. It's just like that haunted house that Francis was in. He's starting to see all kinds of things, and they're starting to get an eerie feel, and he's trying to get out of here, but it looks like the door locked on him. So all he can do is go forward if he wants to get out of this nonsense. While Dick is in here, "Who are you?" is asked by Pennywise. He starts flashing back to World War I, or maybe it was World War II. We aren't for sure, but he starts to see bodies dropping. Then we see babies and toys dropping. And then out of nowhere, we see his mother floating saying, "He will come after you." So Dick, he's nervous. He's trying to escape. Remember, the door closed. When he starts to try to open the door, he's actually opening the door to the back of the helicopter. And Major Leroy has to come and save him because he's hallucinating. He was about to jump out of the helicopter. After the incident, they take Dick to the infirmary. He's sitting there, he's nervous, jacket unbuttoned. He didn't seen it all. The general comes and says, "You saw it, didn't you?" He said, "We weren't supposed to see it. It wasn't supposed to see us." But now he knows that it's coming after him because his mother told him. So the general was saying, "Is there anything else?" He said, "Well, me and the guys, we need a nice place to relax." Because remember, they went down to the little bar and they got ran up out of there. So he's like, if I'm gonna sacrifice my life, at least I'm gonna get me and the fellas somewhere decent to hang out and play cards and drink a little bit. Will and Rich are starting to get closer. We know that Will is a very intelligent young man. Rich, he just going along with the flow, man. As long as he ain't getting picked on, he's a cool little kid. But outside, Ronnie and Lilly are banging on the glass. Boom, boom, boom. He's like, "Ronnie, what is that weirdo want with you?" He's like, "She's not weird." But they go outside and they start talking to him. We know that Lilly and Ronnie have a camera and they're trying to capture whatever it is on camera. But they don't know how to develop film. So they ask Will, "You're smart. Do you know how to do it?" And Will's like, no, but we know Will knows he can figure things out, especially for the girl he likes. Francis, the police officer, goes over to the antique shop where everybody's been buying stuff, and he runs into Rose. She's like, "Can I help you?" He said, "Yeah, anything for 5 cents. That's their little inside joke from when he was younger and didn't have the money. And he's saying, "I don't remember any of this." And she said, "Derry has a weird place of people not remembering." And they also have a flashback of what was going on before he left when she says, "You can't guarantee that anyone's going to remember anything." Now, when she talks to him, she's asking about the dig sites and what's really going on. And he's saying, "Man, they done dug up a few things, but we aren't for sure what is what." It's all kinds of wild going on now because Rose knows that there's something going on. He knows that there's something going on, and they both saw what they saw as kids. Lilly takes the 3 kids up to the hangout spot that she used to hang with Phil and them at. Well, when they get there, Rich is like, "Man, this is the coolest place ever." He makes a little plane, and they start talking about how they can potentially find out what it is. Will doesn't believe it, but he believes that Ronnie believes what she saw is true. Rich, his family is from Cuba. Now he has an uncle, or was it a cousin, or was it an uncle? Who knows? But Rich says he knows how you can summon demons. You have to go to a grave site, you have to light some candles, and you have to do a chant. And they're like, "Are you sure it'll work?" He's like, "Yeah, it'll summon some demons, but it'll probably be like some old ancestors of yours." And everyone's looking at him like, "Are you sure this will work?" He's like, "Yeah, that's what I was told, so I guess we can go try it." Dick goes over to Leroy's house to have dinner after being saved. Now he's talking to Charlotte, Leroy's wife. They were from the South. She wants to be a teacher again. So there's not really much opportunity up here. And Leroy doesn't want her to be an activist because, he just doesn't want a bad reputation. People looking at him funny. As a major, he's making some nice money. Now Leroy is being real nice, but he hasn't talked to Dick about what actually happened that day. Now Dick, he's like, "Thank you to your wife and everything." And he also asks, "Leroy, where's your son?" Leroy's like, "I never told you I had a son," but he doesn't say anything at this moment. The kids go to the graveyard. They all sit around, they light some candles. No one really knows what's going to happen next. They just know they need to take a picture of whatever it is. They all sit down and they're sitting there, wheels close, And they're like, maybe we should turn around away from each other just to look out and see if anything does start to approach us. Now, as kids, this right here is something I would have never done. Have I been in the graveyard after dark? Yeah, but just hanging around trying to summon something? Not a chance. Out on the porch, Leroy and Dick start to have a conversation. Now remember, Dick asked Leroy about his son, but he never told him that he had a son. So while they're sitting down here, Dick tells him straight up, you're not the type of guy that I would hang with. You're different. Plus you're an officer and he's enlisted. Those two usually didn't mix. But he said you saved my life on that helicopter. So I appreciate and respect whatever you have going on. So Leroy's still kind of confused on what they're looking for, what Dick is capable of, and how does he know this information. But Charlotte comes out and stops this conversation mid-convo, talking about she got some mud cakes. And Dick said he ain't turning down no mud cake. All of the kids are sitting here. Rich is chanting off. They're looking away. And, well, it doesn't look like anything's happening because Rich confesses, well, I think my cousin told me this, but they said we thought it was your uncle. He was like, well, it was one of them. They told me, but he had to use the bathroom. So the girls are saying, this is dumb. It ain't going to work. They get mad. They get up and leave. Will and Rich are like, damn, we gotta catch up with them. Well, the girls, they hop on their bikes, and right when they hop on their bikes, things start to get crazy. As the girls are riding their bike, the statue turned his head. The entrance to the graveyard keeps getting further and further and further. Lily's like, are you seeing this? Ronnie starts pedaling faster. She ain't trying to do no talking. Black people know once you start seeing something like this, it ain't time to be friendly. It's time to every man for himself, or in this case, every girl for herself. The ground starts crumbling up under the kids. The boys then caught up. We see tombstones cracking in half. We see Rich's uncle start to float up. Now it's monsters everywhere because he told us it's going to come in the form of your ancestors, whether it's one generation, 2 or 100. It's going to be somebody you knew. While they're riding, they still got to capture these photos because if they don't, no one will believe that this happened. Perception is reality. If it didn't happen, if it isn't documented, they will tell you it didn't happen. So Lilly, she's taking a photo, but all the kids are taking photos of different scenarios and different ghosts or monsters, but they keep dropping the camera because this entity doesn't want them to take these photos out of the graveyard. Will ends up getting separated from the other three. He runs into this whole tombstone. The bike that fell over, it fell down. It's crumpled up. The steering wheel's one way. The handlebars are jacked up. He has the camera because Rich rode by. And when he picked it up, he went into this little room. And when he went in there, all we see is poof, a photo was taken. The kids go to the school with the film. They need to try to develop it. They don't know how, but Will goes in there, reads a book. They set down the 3 trays and they get to it. Will's very smart. Rich is talking about this stuff smells good. Can we drink it? He's like, nah, don't drink that shit. But the kids, they start to develop the photos and we're about to see if the photos we took actually came out good. They start to develop several rolls of film and they starting to see everything that they took pictures of. Everybody's like, oh, there it go. There it go right there. And then they get to the last photo, the one where Will went into the crypt by himself. And they're looking and they're saying, what is that? Well, Will gets a picture of Pennywise. It's an actual clown, but they don't know who Pennywise is. All right, there you go. Episode 3 of It. Welcome to Derry. Man, they done found out who Pennywise was. So this is the second person that's actually came in contact with Pennywise. And, well, it's getting scary in Derry. I like that. Scary in Derry. Let me know what you think about that. If you were a kid, would you have went through all of this? Especially if you never seen it, but now these girls got you over here. I would already told them know what the grave's like. But let me know what you think. I'm ModeIJ. If you like this kind of content, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Thanks for watching. I'm out.
Jimmy on the beat, boy.